Hi, I'm Tish and welcome back to my YouTube channel Auto Social UK. Now back in 2019, Suzuki relaunched their most popular and lovable off-roader, the Suzuki Jimny, and the world went a little bit nuts for it because it still had all of its classic, quirky, cutesy styling, but it was a pretty formidable off-roader. But the problem was Suzuki just couldn't live up to the demand. What they hadn't anticipated is the UK regulations for emissions, and that meant that for every Suzuki Jimny they sold in the UK, they had to pay a pretty hefty fine. So that meant that they needed a new game plan, and that game plan has been 2 years in the making. The Suzuki Jimny is now a commercial van, and I've got my hands on one to show you around it, what's changed and why are people so in love with this vehicle? So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. And if you want to see more new car reviews, don't forget to go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Now, what friends close to me will know, but you guys on the channel won't, is that this was actually supposed to be my Suzuki Jimny. I had my name down for this car, but there's a very good reason why that didn't happen. And that's because used car prices for Suzuki Jimnys are absolutely skyrocketing. Due to the demand and how little amount that Suzuki have built, used car prices are nearly £10,000 more than the new car prices. So when I said that I wanted to register this car to me, my company wanted to register it for them, and I completely understand their reasoning. If you can make 10 grand on a car, you're going to make 10 grand on a car. So it's a real shame, but the good news is that I still get my chance to have some fun in this vehicle and show you guys around it. So it's not a complete lose-lose. So what's changed in the new commercial vehicle? Well, I guess the headline thing is that it's now a van. So where there used to be a set of pretty cramped rear seats, they've now been completely taken out and there's a completely flat load bay. You now get 863 litres of boot space, and between where the rear seats and the front used to be, they now have this rear cage so that you don't have anything rolling from the back into the front. It can also carry up to 150 kilograms of weight in the rear here. Now, as you can see, it might look quite big because essentially when you look at a Suzuki Jimny, it's hard to gauge how big it is. But as you can see, it's not even a metre in length or a metre in width. So it really does make it kind of difficult if you wanted to load any large items in the back here. But most Suzuki Jimny customers were having their rear seats flat anyway, so I don't think it will make too much of a difference when it comes to practicality. The only other headline change is the fact that it now only comes in one specification, and that's the lower spec. It makes no difference to its off-roading capabilities, and from the outside it's relatively unchanged, apart from the fact that it's got some smaller alloy wheels. And the actual larger wheels that you would have got on the SZ5 model are now on back order, which is a real shame because this vehicle is screaming out for some upgrades. If you like going on things like camping trips and you need to know that this vehicle is going to be versatile enough, then you might be wondering if you can remove this grate. And the good news is yes, and it's pretty simple, just with a few removable bolts. And that way you can completely flatten the passenger seat, making it a much more practical loading area. Inside of the cabin, and this is possibly where you're going to notice the most difference with this being the lower spec SZ4, and that's because the Jimny Commercial has lost its digital screen, and with it it's lost satellite navigation and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and also your rear parking sensors and heated seats, which is a little bit of a shame, and these were things that put me off kind of signing on the dotted line when it comes to the Jimny. But I'm a little bit annoyed I let it put me off because driving this car I've realised that as a commercial it doesn't need all those fancy bells and whistles. I've still got DAB digital radio, I've got Bluetooth with hands-free phone connectivity and also your music streaming. I've got air conditioning, automatic lights, I haven't got automatic wipers, but I've still got cruise control, lane assist, I've also got a multifunctional steering wheel, and all the quality of the cabin is the same. Yes, okay, the quality was never that good to start with, but it hasn't dropped any more from the previous vehicle. The Suzuki Jimny has never been particularly accommodating for tall drivers, but that's made even worse in the commercial vehicle. It's okay if you're my height, around 5'5", as I can comfortably reach the pedals and I can sit in a comfortable position. However, if you're 6 foot, you're going to need to sit completely bolt upright to be able to get the seat to go far enough back. And even then, there's still not much room to go any further. And that's because the cage is stopping the seats from going back any further than this. But another win for small drivers, because in my seating position, that leaves quite a bit of space behind the seat, meaning there's extra room for luggage storage. When I first took the Jimny out back in 2019, I wasn't as confident as a driver as I am now, and I wasn't used to driving so many different cars. And I found it really tricky to get used to that kind of long gear stick and the off-road driving of this car. However, now driving it, it feels like getting back into an old friend, and it's really good fun. You get used to those quirks and how to drive it best. I mean, there's absolutely no feel through the gear stick, so most of the time you haven't got a single clue what gear you're in, and of course it's very notchy, but it's all part of the fun. Now on the motorway, and this is where the Suzuki Jimny isn't really at its happiest. It doesn't really like sitting on motorways, but then again, that's not what it was designed for at all. If you're planning on doing mostly rural journeys and you only need to get on the dual carriageway from time to time, I don't think it's too much trouble at all. It will happily sit at between 50 and 60 miles per hour with very little noise. However, when you want to slightly go above that, it then does become quite noisy, and to get that last 10 miles per hour out of it from 60 to 70 is a real struggle. The steering is also very, very vague. As soon as you get over about 40 miles per hour, you can move the steering wheel quite a lot, and the Jimny will actually hardly move at all. So going at high speeds, it does become a little bit unnerving when you're changing lanes. But if you're not doing these journeys very often, I don't really think you'll find it an issue. Yes, it is a bit noisy and it's not the most comfortable, but I really don't think it's anything you couldn't put up with if it's not all the time. The transmission and also the engines are completely unchanged from the previous vehicle. It still gets a 5-speed manual gearbox which has short ratios. As you can hear now, it desperately sounds like it wants me to go into a 6th gear, but of course I don't have one, and that's a real common theme with the Jimny. As soon as you get over around 50 miles per hour, it does start to get quite noisy. But if you're sticking below those speeds, it's relatively quiet. In fact, when you first start this car up, it's really quiet, which I was surprised about. With some of the old school kind of off-roaders, you'll really wobble about, but it's really quite settled at low speeds. The engine is a 1.5 litre petrol producing 100 brake horsepower and 95 pound-feet of torque. It will do 0 to 62 in around 12 seconds if you're lucky, so this car is definitely not going to be winning any races. But yet again, it wasn't designed to be all about power. It's got that low down grunt where it's needed when you're off-road, but you do have to be quite wary that if you're a little bit of a nervous driver, things like pulling onto dual carriageways can be a little bit uncomfortable, as you have to really work through the gears quickly and push it really hard to get some power. If you are small like me and can get comfortable behind the steering wheel, then you've got some real great visibility. I can see the whole front of the bonnet. I've got a really good wide angle. I've got some massive door mirrors that I can see in. So parking this car and driving this car is an absolute doddle. Not to mention that of course you can throw it just about anywhere because it can cope really well off-road. So in general, if you need a car to kind of tackle those tricky Suffolk back roads, then this is absolutely perfect. One of the big reasons that I didn't sign on the dotted line straight away for one of these cars is I was a little bit put off by them only coming in the lower spec. I was a little bit gutted that I'd miss out on things like satellite navigation and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But you know what? Living with this car for a weekend, I don't miss it at all. I kind of almost feel like this rugged spec suits it a little bit better. It's got all the main things like Bluetooth, so you can stream your music and have your phone on the hands-free. It's also got air conditioning and cruise control and lane assist. I don't really think it needs anything more. In fact, when you start adding those things, it becomes a completely different vehicle. It then becomes more of an SUV, whereas this was never designed to be that. It was designed to be an off-roader. And you know what? I think take away the Bluetooth, take away the DAB radio, take away the air conditioning. I still think people would buy these in their hundreds because they're kind of just so classic, and it's almost that stripped back feel with the grab handle that makes it so likeable. Despite the fact that it's been stripped back of quite a lot of its technology, this car actually still has a fair amount of safety equipment, so it makes you feel a lot more comfortable behind the wheel. You've got anti-collision warning, you've also got lane assist. These are all things that I'm missing in my R-Bath. And I just think to have those anti-collision warnings, even if you don't use them 90% of the time, it does make you feel a lot more comfortable to know that if you're distracted for even a second, that the car might have your back in an emergency. So well done Suzuki for sticking with those things. It's funny how I'm drawn to these little cars that have their compromises, but also loads of fun as well. I can't seem to like anything that's just completely boring and really good at everything. I really like these cars that are kind of the underdogs, cars that annoy you but also really grow on you, and I feel like this car shares a lot with that, like with the R-Bath. The R-Bath is very noisy, but it's also very uncomfortable, but it's also loads of fun. And the Suzuki Jimny is also very much like that. It's not the most comfortable, it's not great on motorways, but it's just so lovable. Okay, I'm not oblivious to the fact that this video was missing something, and that was some proper off-roading. But unfortunately, this car doesn't belong to me. It does belong to Quest Motor Group. But I think if enough of you comment down below that you want to see some off-roading, Quest might let me have a little go. We can only try, hey? What do you think of the Suzuki Jimny? Is it overhyped, or is it deserved of all of that hype? Would you buy one if you could get your hands on one? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video today. If you have liked it, please give it a big like. And if you want to see more videos like this and more car content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much to Quest to let me drive the Jimny for the weekend, even if you wouldn't let me buy it, but never mind, at least I get the best of both worlds and it's not burning a hole in my pocket. If you are interested in this car or any other Suzukis, then please make sure you check them out. I'll pop it in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye.